All right.
Mike Harrell, and today I'm going to do the beginning of a series that I'm going to call Ambassadors of Sasquatch. And that's for people who have a feeling of Sasquatch. They want to protect Sasquatch, and they want to kind of like let other people know what's really going on, sort of on a spiritual level and on a friend and family level. And today I'm going to begin this series with C. Wayne Wilson, and he's going to begin his story at the beginning of how the Sasquatch found him.
Okay, well, it was about, I would say, I'd say it's been 4 years now, but it was like probably January, February of that year. We'd had a big ice storm and a snowstorm too. It was just all over the ground. So we finally got out that one night, and me and the family went out that one night once the roads got clear. And when we came back, we let the dogs out. And when we did, my girl comes running in the house saying, "Daddy, Daddy, a Bigfoot's been here." And at that point, you know, we've been watching Mountain Monsters, and, you know, we watch that show for fun. We wouldn't, you know, thinking no Bigfoot's been here. And I go out there to look to see what she had, and it was this big, massive tree structure, and it was made into an X. And so I first look at it, I blow it off that trees have fallen down, and they just fall down and I said, I'll look at it again in the morning. I said, when it's light, I said, so I can see it. When I went back, I realized how big the trees were, and how big and how they were placed. I mean, how they were twined in together and how they were placed. No accidental tree falling would ever happen, you know. And I started looking at it, and I told my little girl, I said, obviously somebody put this here. And she said, yeah, Bigfoot. I said, no. I said, well, I said, I don't know, nobody would prank me. I said, I don't know why would anybody would think about putting something like that here. And I said, so when the snow melts, we'll go look for some footprints. And a few days later, we go back out there, and lo and behold, there it was, a 23-inch footprint. And it was so deep in the mud, you know. I tried to cast it, but I'm an amateur at casting things because I ain't never hunted for Bigfoot at this point, you know. But once you start seeing that, and then then they start, you know, I haven't seen them yet, but I know they're there. And so I start looking for them. And then all of a sudden, you start hearing these things outside your window yelling. You start seeing things running through there. And so then I put a trail cam up to see if I could capture it, because it was driving me crazy to try to figure out what keeps coming out there leaving footprints and what keeps making those noises. So I set that one trail cam up on the tree, and the trail cam was about, it only reached out 70 to 100 feet max, but it was pulling in pictures way across the road. I mean, way, way across the road, thousands of feet, in fact. And to me, you know, at that point, I've got the trail cam back in my backyard. It's shooting clear across from my backyard to my front yard, all the way across the road. And for a trail cam that picks up 70 feet to be picking up something that far, it had to have been something really big over there. And it had to be something really big moving over there for it to be able to strip it. And you could blow the pictures up, and you could see what I call, you know, figures and stuff, but it wasn't nothing definite. And
So you're saying you were living in North Carolina at the time, right? And you still are, right?
Well, I'm still in North Carolina, but
and all this stuff happened. You didn't go get in your truck or get in your car and go hiking in the woods. This is from your house. They came around the woods around your house and around your backyard. Is that right?
Right. and they were coming. They were actually this was originally a heavily deer populated area. When I first moved there, the landlord took it was a hunting blind sitting in a tree in my backyard. So that's how many deer were coming in and out. So but then the deer disappeared. The deer stopped coming over there, and like I said, one day I'm moving the trail cam around because I'm not really catching nothing. So I figure I'll put it on the porch, and I didn't bolt it down. I just set it on the grill, and I set it on the grill. When I come back that day and I looked at that trail cam footage, and I saw this one picture, and basically, like I was saying before, I believe it's a hip. It's either a shoulder or a hip of a Sasquatch, and it's one of the best, closest. You can really see what they really look like color-wise. Don't get me wrong, I don't think all of them look like it, but that was one that, had a lot of black hair on him, and at first a few people were trying to say it was a bear, and I'm like, no, that's no bear. And then, of course, I had to go around and send it to a few what I call people that hunt bears for a living, and they said, no, that's no bear, you got a Sasquatch. But, again, that's nothing yet. That's nothing yet because it's it was one picture. It wasn't a face. It was just a body part, but it was still really, really good. So, but something happened when I had trail cams everywhere, but I kept getting these distant shots, but I wasn't seeing anything. So, then I started, took all those down and bought me a camcorder. And I started using the camcorder. At first, I couldn't see them, and then one day I'm filming out of frustration, and lo and behold, I see one in the woods, got looks like a bag of fast food in its hand, and it's plain as day, and I see it plain as day, and that's the first one I actually got. I saw real, real good, but yeah, well, I didn't get a whole lot of good pictures, and most of them at that point, I didn't know what I was taking pictures of because I couldn't never figure it out. So up in that point, I was just getting them off the trail cam. But then it's like this. It gives you the desire. You want to communicate. Then I noticed that the footprints stopped. They weren't coming over in the woods anymore. They were just staying across the road. And I think it was because I had those trail cams everywhere. So as soon as I took them down, the footprints came back. And so I took the trail cams down. I got rid of them, got the camcorder, got one on video finally. And then I knew that by getting them on video, I knew what I was actually. But it wasn't until, again, I'm out there with my phone taking pictures of footprints when I hear the wood knock, and I look over there. And when I look over, I see the biggest freaking thing I've ever seen. And it was, he was 18 to 22 feet tall. It was the biggest dude I've ever seen, and he's just standing across the road out in the open looking directly at me. And that's the first time I saw what I call the giant. And he was the first one to walk out and let me see him. But just think, if I'd had a point and shoot back in that time, boy, I would have had a good picture. But
so you're saying it's 18 to 22 feet, right?
I've seen him. Yeah, I've seen this dude.
Well, I just want to throw that into perspective for people. Okay, this whole building is about 20 foot 6 inches tall. This that pipe in the middle right there, that's right at 10 feet. And the top of that window, that's just 7'9" or 10. But just to show you the size of Sasquatch. So the top of the window is 8 foot. That horizontal electric bar to going across there is 10 foot. And the top of that 2-story building is 20 foot. So if you go around somebody who's got a 2-story house, and you go and you look at the top of their house where the roof comes down, that's around 18 or 20 feet. So it's 2 stories tall, and the 30-foot a 30-foot person, which you've also seen, is 3 stories tall. So you can see just how gigantic that is. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
a 10-foot tall is a very, very tall, but then 18 feet, that's just a giant, like you said.
Well, and when you see it with your own 2 eyes, and then you see multiple times now. After that, I could go out there and I'd be videoing them, and I would see them out there. I started learning where they were at. Started learning where they were at. Started learning every habit they had. I knew when they would be up, when they would be asleep. I knew when they were, I knew when it got dark where they would be at. Up until that point, once I started getting a bond with them, is when I started going out at night. If I left to go get my wife, or I come outside and let the dogs out, I would hear the whistles. They started whistling at me nonstop, and they would whistle at me. It was most of the time at night. It didn't happen during the day, but they would whistle at me. And the whistles always came from those woods over there where they were at. And, one night I'm actually out there and they're whistling at me, and I record this video now on my phone, and as I do, I get turned around, and the video captures one run right by me and turn me around. So they were playing games with me, and they would run around me, and they did start playing like these little games. They would come around me, and they'd think I wouldn't know it. And most of the time, if I see them, when they would come by me, it would be just like a black flash. It would be so quick, unless you really, really, but the camera caught it. And luckily that was the first, what I call pretty darn good piece of evidence that something's out there. And then I turned around, like I said, I turned around and I thought I was getting a good bond with them at this point. I haven't started talking to them yet. I would just go out there and say, hey, my friends, I would just say it to them when I was out there. But when you go out there and you look around and you see these giants, and then more and more of them start showing themselves, and then we get into, then I get, like I said, then I get into the video being, I get into the video on them so much, but I'm not getting anything out of them. So I get frustrated one day.
So this all the things you're talking about. This is basically like the first year.
This would be within the 6 months of when I first found that tree structure.
Yeah. So you don't really, you haven't really joined any groups. Maybe watched maybe a few videos. So but it's all pretty much new to you.
Yeah, it was all new to me. I mean, I was just sharing it with people I was friends with, and most of the people I was friends with were just family and Panther people. Carolina Panther people. It wasn't really, and I was friends with like the people from Mountain Monsters. I would share a picture on there because I thought it was cool that I'm discovering Bigfoot, and I wanted basically what I wanted was somebody else's second opinion. I wanted to see somebody else who knows them to tell me what it was, and next thing I know, I'm getting friend requests like crazy. And people starting to want to, support me and stuff, and give me, give me all the, details and everything about the Sasquatch. But within that point, though, all I know is, there's Bigfoots around there, and I don't know nothing else about them other than I know they're out there. And but then one day I get cocky. One day I go out there and I go across the road where they're at. Now, I get up so close to them, I walk almost within about, I would say, 18 feet of where they were. With that camera and that zoom, I could zoom right through those trees. And every one of them started cloaking, but I could see them plain as day. And they were almost in disbelief that I was over there. And then I come home and I'm looking at the footage, and of course on the camcorder I can see them plain as day, but when I put them on the computer you couldn't see them. So I couldn't share that stuff, but I started.
Well, here's something I want to bring out since
Yeah.
I've known you and I talked to you a little bit. This whole thing of cloaking is that you have some what people call supernatural abilities, or second sight, or remote viewing abilities, so that you can see Sasquatch when they cloak and their energy pattern. A lot of people have this. and you have certain kind of like a ESP thing, because you used to see spirits and stuff when you were younger. And
Yeah.
so this is like a key point for people who don't know about Sasquatch, that some people can see them when they're cloaked, some people can see them, and other people can't. They really cannot see them.
Exactly.
It's like
Exactly.
a gift. Like in the hills, they call it second sight. Country people call it second sight.
Right. I didn't realize at that point, I knew about ghosts and stuff. I knew I could see ghosts, but I didn't realize up to that point. I thought everybody could see them, and I would share them. I would get so much grief from people that would just rag on me and say it's not real. And again, seeing them over there like I did, and then that night, about 5 o'clock in the morning, I got the biggest darn face looking in my window, and he is mad, and he is roaring at me as loud as he possibly can, and he's shaking the house. And all I could think of when I saw him was, I got to get a picture of this dude, because I'm not thinking he's there to kill me. I'm thinking I need to get a picture of this dude. I mean, that shows you he's there warning me to stay away from their area, and I'm sitting there trying to get his picture. I mean, I might be crazy, but at the same time, I never felt I never ever felt no threat from them at all. I knew, but I did know, because he came over here, not to do that no more, because that was a warning not to do that anymore. So I didn't. And well, I didn't do it. I didn't want to make this big dude mad, because I've seen how big he is. And when you see how high up my window is from the ground, which was a good 10, 12 feet up off the ground, and you see him leaning over into that window, then you know how big he is. And then you could actually, this is why I know how big they are. You could look back out the window. He stayed outside my window the rest of the night. That's how mad he was. And I could look out there and I could see him standing there. And he stayed there that whole night. I guess that was a warning. Don't do this no more. I'm gonna mess you up. But again, you got to get the respect for them and know that's where they sleep. See, it was kind of an uncommon bond with me and them in the beginning. I couldn't go over there where they were, but I could harass the dog out of them in my woods, and they didn't care. They didn't care. They let me go get in their faces. They let me take videos of them. They let me, they would let me do almost everything in my woods, but I was clearly told not to go over there where they're at. And I think the reason being is, there's a portal over there where they're at. I'm almost sure of it. And there's 2 portals that was over there. I think one of them was down in my woods, and there was one across the road in those woods. And, but I'm going to get into it.
You're going to have to explain a little bit about portal, because
Yeah.
again, there's the ape hangers, these people who just think it's an ape, and they have no clue of what a portal is, or that the portal is a reality, and that literally hundreds and hundreds of people talk about these portals. To them, it's too weird. But I think it's a fundamental natural reality.
I was sitting in my kitchen one day. I was sitting in my kitchen one day, and I saw them. They all just come through this, what I call this white orb. It was an orb that was like a jet stream that just came out and just come across the sky real quick. And the sky got real cloudy looking, and this orb thing just came up and was spitting each one of them out on the ground and wherever they were at. And I was watching it, and I was snapping pictures of it, because I was in disbelief that they would let me see that. And guess what? They didn't ever let me see it a second time, but they did let me see it that once. And
well, that sounds more like a craft. That's also very, very common. Even this lady, Linda Moulton Howe, she talks about a story of how a couple of hunters were out, and they saw this craft, was basically an orb of light, hover over the tree line, and then these drops of light would come down, and then they turned into the Sasquatch people and started making a bunch of racket. So this is a mainstream, the most mainstream kind of a UFO lady talking about Sasquatch coming out of light orb, which I think is a UFO.
And I always tell anybody, anytime they arrive, when they would arrive in my woods, I would see them. They would start as a really, really light beam of light, and they would start getting thicker and thicker and thicker, and then you would see, you know, you could see them though way back in the woods, and I could just look back there and I could see that big giant standing back there, but he hadn't formed fully. And I've seen them in my woods before where they come out and they're almost a mist and they're starting to form. It usually would start about 6, 7 o'clock. When it started getting dark, you'd start seeing their images start forming in the woods. They weren't there until about, they would all be across the road because I could film them across the road. And then when it started getting dark, they somehow beamed right up. They beamed themselves back over into my woods and started forming in my woods. And that was an everyday occurrence, you know. But there is, like I said,
so you're saying you can see them congregating in their woods, which is across the front of your house, across the street, in the field, and then the woods.
Right.
Not that far. I mean, the field was only maybe 30, 40 yards. It wasn't a really big field.
I caught it one day. One morning I actually saw it, so I knew to go back out there. I seen how they would do it.
And then somehow they end up in your backyard through some kind of paranormal, you don't know what, invisible or something. They go in your backyard and then they start making racket and having fun or whatever they do.
I've seen this, what I call this orb, like beam of light that would come directly across the road, and they would be in it, and it would basically beam them from across the road into my woods. When they leave in the mornings, one morning I'm backing out to take my little girl to school, and I saw it. I'm backed out, and it's this big, foggy beam of light that's going right across the road, and you could see them. They were in it, and they were going right back across the road. That's how they were doing it, you know. But what gets me about it is that's how all of them travel. Now, there's what you call the random ones that would just run across the road, but, you know, the risky fact of them running across the road is the fact that what happens if a random car hits one of them, and, you know, then you got a problem. But most of the time I seen them, they would travel with, I always called it a jet stream because that's what it looked like. It looked like a cloudy jet stream that would come up one area to the other, and once they leave there, and they let me see it one time there, and they let me see it one more time. But it's almost like they let me see certain things at certain times, and then I wouldn't see it no more. And it's what you call learning from them. And that's what I was doing. I was learning from them. The day in the kitchen when I saw them getting spit out, that was part of it. And
I've experienced that too. They give you a hint, and you have to really pay attention to that hint because you may not ever get another one. So that, whatever that means, you got to take it to the bank and really think about it, because that's the way they teach. They don't go in for long explanations. They'll show you something. This is the way it is. And then you have to process that yourself and understand it yourself, because you may not ever see that again. They might do something different.
And then we get into, like I said, we get into the fact that all they did at this point was whistle and say hey to me. Or they didn't even say hey to me. It was just, they would just yell at, they would yell at me and stuff if I come out there. But then there's the one day I see these things across the road, which I'm thinking are new Bigfoots. And they're up a good ways, about 2 houses up in the woods up there. It's not necessarily connected to the woods. It was just the same woods that the other Sasquatch were in. It's a bit way further up. And some of the most nastiest looking, tall, skinny, lanky, sickly looking things I've ever seen. They didn't even look like Sasquatch. They looked like something entirely different, and they were weird, and I kept feeling really, really bad energy from them. But I'm like, I got to film these dudes. Well, the first time I'm out there trying to film them, this orange light keeps getting in my way. And it keeps blocking me. And I keep trying to film. And at first, I blame it on the sunlight. I'm thinking it's the sunlight, but it wasn't. It was them trying to keep me. It was either them things trying to prevent me from filming them, or it was my Sasquatch trying to stop me from filming. But I kept on, and then that's when I hear every one of them down in those woods. Every single one of those Sasquatches of mine started yelling hey at me. And again, I didn't think it was nothing to this other than the fact that there was some weird ones, but I started getting a weird vibe that my Sasquatch don't want me filming. So a few days later, they were in my neighbor's yard up above me, still two houses, but they were up in the woods looking down at me. And I go walk toward them. I hadn't even put a camera up, and they start yelling at me. They yelling hey at me again, telling me don't film them things. And right when I didn't film them, the very same night, I look outside and there's this big 8-9 feet tall naked lady standing in my woods, just standing outside my woods in the yard, looking backwards and forwards, nonstop. And then I look, and the Sasquatches are lined up on the woods, on every corner in those woods. I mean, they were everywhere. And
well, could you give an estimate? I mean, and this is like at the end of the first year, the beginning of the second year? Is that what it is?
I would say it was probably later in that year, maybe probably later probably the beginning of the next year, because it was cold at that time, so I'm thinking it was probably around the beginning of that year.
So could you give us now you're talking about, I know of at least 3 or possibly 4 types of beings that are people shapes that you've mentioned. Could you kind of go over, number 1, the different kinds that you've seen, and number 2, how many? Because this is phenomenal how many that you actually have accumulated.
The Sasquatch I've seen up to 100 or more over there. I mean, when I first started, once everything was good with them and I could start spotting them, it was one day I'm out there, I'll put it this way. It was one day I was out there filming, and I looked there, I said, good day, there's at least 50 to 60 squatches up there near where the railroad tracks were. And I'm like, I put it on. I think I shared that picture, and people were like, there's no way that's that many up on there. There's no way you got that many there. Well, about 2 days later, they're all in my wood. I mean, they're all in the woods across the road, and I kid you not, there was so much mating going on at the time. I mean, there was mating. There was naked ladies laying over there in the sun. They didn't have. That
was the Sasquatch people, but you have the other ones too. How many other different kinds do you have?
I would say the ones that were up there, the ones I say was tall and skinny, I think they were. There was one really big, heavy one. There was there was a couple of female ones. The difference that I noticed about these people, they didn't cover themselves up. My Sasquatches that I knew covered themselves up with leaves. These Sasquatches, they were just standing out there showing everything, the males and everything, and they just looked so strange. I mean, they looked sickly almost, really tall, but like evil type, sickly type things. And I kept thinking there may be skinwalkers.
What did their face look like?
Almost like demons. They didn't look like Bigfoots. They didn't have a face. They didn't have a human-like face. Most of them didn't. But they were.
Well, they wouldn't be skinwalkers, because skinwalkers is kind of a one-off kind of a thing. It's a spiritual training and stuff. These are beings. When you have 4 or 5 of a man or woman, those are beings.
I just think whatever they were, they didn't want them things near me, and they started guarding my woods.
And you've had the giants too, which was completely different. They're still consider themselves Bigfoot, but they're different than what everybody knows of as Sasquatch.
Right. I mean, well, one guy, like I said, one giant is he is good 25 to 28 feet tall, and he looks more like a giant human. And the other Bigfoot, he looks like your classic Sasquatch, but he's so big, and you can tell he was the leader of the. You could tell he was the leader of the group. The other one wasn't, and you could tell they all listened to him. They all went by him because, number one, he's the first one that showed himself to me. Number two, I would see him out there at night. I mean, I'd see him out there in the morning. The first one you would spot would be him because he's so tall. And then you'll look at your picture and you'll notice, or even you don't even look at the picture, look at the video and you look and you see all the small ones are laying on his legs, and he's leaning up against the tree because he's too tall. There is one picture I got, and it's funny. I caught him sleeping in the woods one day, and he was sleeping and he had his butt up in the air, and I took a picture of him, and I said, That's it. Here's a picture of the largest butt you've ever seen in your life. And I did that because I thought it was funny. If you could have seen how clear that picture was, and I need to dig it out again and reshare it because of, the problem I got right now is I've got so many new people that's joined the ambassadors page and has friended me that hasn't seen a lot of what I posted in the last couple of years. So I have to go back and reshare some of this stuff, every so often. I don't want to be known as the guy that just don't get anything new and just keep sharing the same old junk over and over. But it ain't the case. I mean, when you got new people, they want to know the stories. And like when I shared the picture of the accident, the attack over, by them during.
That's going to be I think that whole attack from the federal government, whoever it was, that should be a whole series just by itself.
Oh, it will always. What I'm making a point about. What I'm making a point about is the not necessarily we're talking about that, but I'm just talking about how how they were warning me and stuff. They were I didn't understand why they were out there. All I understood was when you see a naked lady out there and you look, and what's so weird about it, you could look out the window and you could see them. And you could see the Sasquatch plain as day. You opened up the door, they disappeared. And but they would disappear. But if you seen them through the window, they were there. And so about a week goes by, whatever. She's out there. I see her out there mating with her man. Her man comes out, but she's still staying on guard. And it's the weirdest thing. I mean, I hate to tell people I saw him having sex, but I did. And they're sitting out there. The whole time she's got her baby on her shoulder, and he's behind her. And the whole time he's doing what he's doing. And he just come out of the woods, out from nowhere, and went right behind her. And the whole time she's just on guard. She's just turning her head backwards and forwards. And this went on about a week. And I made the comment out there. I said, it's too evil out here. I said, this was when they officially had started showing up and letting me see them in the woods. And when they did that, it's almost like it opened up a whole new portal over there. And at first, there was like these evil faces. You could see them in the woods. There was one night that was this demon-like face in the woods, and I walked up to that demon, and, well, I actually was laughing at him one day or whatever, and this thing was mean because I was out there one day with a camera, and that thing sent a bolt of lightning right by my head, and it went right by my head, and it hit the fence right across from the house, and I got a picture of that. And what's so great about that is people don't understand. You don't think they can't throw balls of energy? Yes, they can. And I went back out there the next night. I told him, I said, you think you're the devil, don't you? I said, you think you that bad and evil? I said, well, but listen, buddy, I want you out of my woods, and I want you to come back. I kid you not, he left. After I told him that, he left. And then I said, this just got too evil out here. And the next thing I know, the female's gone. I look out there, and there's the big giant. And now he's standing out there guarding. And now he's got his female with him, and they're on a different side of the woods, and they're standing there, and they're watching the house, and they still got everybody placed around. And then over where she was at, they turned the tree into like a ballerina. So if you looked outside, you'd see a ballerina, like a ballerina, and it looked like almost like a light lit up street. And of course, I took a picture of that too, because I mean, that is phenomenal when you see it. When I tell people they turn the woods into a book, the camera could pick it up. You couldn't see it with the naked eye. I could if I looked out the window, but I couldn't see it, other than with the camera. But to get a picture of something like that and tell people that he did that mainly because he thought I was thinking they were evil, and it was.
So he was showing you like a little happy picture of a dance or something.
Yeah, showing me something that wasn't so mean or something, because I mean, you look at them and you could be kind of creeped. For the normal person, they could be creeped out by them. Me, on the other hand, I wasn't ever scared of them. And but I did turn around and I actually kept trying to get pictures. I got a few pictures of them, but then, like I said, about 5 o'clock that morning, this was the night he showed up. 5 o'clock that morning, it was what I call my first vision or my first astral thing where they took me somewhere. And it was that giant. He introduced himself because he said he couldn't come into my woods without letting me know who he was first. He wouldn't tell me his name. He was just telling me all about them, about how they're a peaceful people. They're a peaceful people. They're protecting me, and now they want me to they want to show me where they come from so I can understand them more. So he took me to this place, and all I saw was like a red city. It looked like our city, but it was red. And I'm still not sure what it was. It might be our future, or it might be it might be something in our future or whatever, but kind of freaked me out because I said, shoot, it could be hell. So I backed out of it because that's the first vision I ever had with him. And so I backed out of it, and that's the first time, but
Yeah, but there's other people who've looked into it, looked into portals, and they
yeah.
say that light on that side is red.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's
So
probably
you're not the only one, and red is actually a good color for plants and for animals. Back in the ancient history, the atmosphere of Earth was kind of clouded, and the sun gave a reddish light. So that's really good. Plants actually grow better in red light. It's not a bad.
that explains too. Some days I could stand out there and take multiple pictures. I would take multiple pictures. One picture would come out green. One picture would look normal, and then another picture would be red. And you could take a picture of them back in the woods where they were physically, and the picture would be red. It wouldn't be the regular picture it should be.
Well, we're running a little bit long here. Let's sort of like bring this to sort of like an end, sort of go to the downhill side. Why don't you tell a little bit about, because all this stuff is experiences, right? But
Right.
you were going through changes too, from not knowing, and then and then you have this whole no fear thing, and then you have like this profound affection or connection that you feel. Could you talk a little bit about
Yeah, it starts becoming, I would say, first you start learning from them, then you start respecting them, and then you start gaining a love for them, and you start having an understanding of them and a love for them, it was kind of weird because in the same time, not just because of them, but at the same time, I start realizing there's better ways to self-heal myself. And I start finding ways to start losing weight, and I start losing a lot of weight. I bet I lost since I've known the Sasquatch. In that year, I lost 60 pounds, and that's a lot of weight for anybody to lose that fast. But it comes from wanting to be out there with that camera and be out there and stay out there like several hours in the heat, just taking pictures. And even if they weren't out there, I would leave a minute or two and come back, and they would be there. And in the beginning, it's like I said, it's a learning curve. The next one we can talk about will be how they taught me stuff. I mean, because once we get into the next part, you could learn about the symbols and everything. They started leaving me. Once I started understanding them, they started giving me those visions, and then next thing you know, they start leaving me clues in the yard, and
then each time this goes in, there's like a connection that gets deeper and more solid and more real, because everybody who's actually like an ambassador feels like ambassador or protector, the protector of the Sasquatch.
Exactly. I get mad at anybody that says I'm trying to do this to get rich from it. I said that's not the case. I know what I got to do to protect them. I know what I got to do to make sure that they get the recognition they need, and not by some 30-minute TV show by some celebrity. A celebrity can go on all day long and talk about Sasquatch, but they're not going to let him. Where I can come in and where I've got the different gift than I think most is the fact that I have no fear. And I could walk in the woods and walk right up to them and talk to them. I mean,
well, that's just that whole fear topic is a big deal, because that they give some people fear and they take fear away from some people. And if you understand the spiritual significance of not having any fear, that's a lot of that. So a lot of people are getting this fear thing, which I call tagging. So somebody gets afraid of Sasquatch, but at the same time, their whole life changes, and then they start researching Sasquatch and wanting to know about Sasquatch. So there's this whole spiritual thing that's connected to that.
It's like, too, something else changed in me. I started wanting to stay at home all the time. I started wanting to cook my own foods. I didn't want to eat out anymore. I started wanting to spend time with my wife and kid and my dogs. I didn't care about associating with other people, only the Sasquatch. And it got to be where I was living more of a peaceful, happy life where no drama or no stress was involved in it anymore. And it was like, once you accept them into your life, that's what happens. I mean, now it's like the same thing, like, you got to make sure, when you spend time talking to people. I mean, all I do now anyway is I talk about, I'll get on, like today at Walmart, talking about this lady about the benefits of turmeric. I said the same thing to my brother-in-law today. But I also talk about the Sasquatch to people, and I always make sure like yesterday, I'm telling my neighbor about them. But I also told her, I said, it's a big story. I said, I'm not going to be wanting to tell everybody around here about, because then they'll all be outside thinking they're going to see something. And, here I'm limited to what I can do other than see them out there at nighttime. They do actually have, it's like 3 or 4 of them always stay out there at the corner, and it's like at a section of the window blind where I can only see them, and I guess they do that so they'll know that I know they're still there, and that's pretty cool, but
That's very cool. This is another common thing of people who are connected to Sasquatch is they all feel like the Sasquatch watch them and watch out for them. It's like a kind of protection, a spiritual protection,
right.
and physical protection too, because they've stopped robberies and stuff like that before. All right, let's wind it down, and you have your last little say, and then we'll end this session. This was really good. We covered a lot of ground. That's why I don't really want to go too long with this, because there's so much richness that it's, people are going to get diabetes from eating this.
I would say the last good thing about the first year and a half was the fact that I'm out there one day and I'm filming a Sasquatch, and he's probably 5 feet in front of me, and I see him plain as day, and he's got his head beside a tree. He's just looking at me, and they were smart because they would stick their heads out, but there would be an embankment down there, so they would be standing down there and then peeking around the corner with their head. I'm filming this dude, and I'm filming him, and within a minute and a half of him, I'm sitting there saying, he's cloaking, don't do it, and he disappears right on camera. I've got the most incredible, I don't care what anybody says, that's the most incredible Sasquatch proof there is that dispels anybody that says they can't cloak.
And that's probably up on your YouTube channel, right? I'll put a link to that.
Yeah, well, I share it a lot because I think that's one of the best finds I've ever got. That's one of the best things I've ever got, because it's within the first year, I quit filming them. Probably within about the first couple of years, I stopped filming them. I didn't want to film them anymore. I just wanted to take pictures of them. And from then on, retired the camcorder, bought a point and shoot, and started taking pictures because I can get a longer lens. And the stuff I would get then, the pictures I would get then, especially at nighttime, would be, the videos I got at nighttime are pretty cool because, you can see in some of those videos, you can see so many heads. And I mean, the good thing about me is the fact I'm sitting on a lot of video and a lot of pictures I ain't even shared yet. And I think
we should end it right there, because you have a mountains of stuff to talk about, and
I know.
we're supposed to keep these things a little bit shorter, and we're already now pushing close to it.
I think the next one's going to be, if you want to, the next one will be, I guess we do in the next segment, which will be where I want to talk about the red Sasquatch, where I discovered the red one first, and And just don't forget that. That's where we want to start at. What happened when I started trying to film the red Sasquatch? Because I got another warning. That was another warning I got from them.
All right. Well, I'm Mike Harrell, and this is C. Wayne Wilson, and we'll catch you next time.